All right, my amazing Youest family, friends, community. I just got to say, you are in for such a freaking treat today, Jenna Kutcher. I just, it's funny. I feel a little fangirlish saying this, and I don't mean to, but I've just loved you and your work and what you're doing,
Mm.
and it's so awesome to have you here and to talk about how are you really, your book, and how are you really as a
I
mom.
know. Oh my gosh. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun. And it's so funny because in naming my book this, I have had to start every interview answering that. And my thing is like all about integrity and alignment. So I'm like, I've got to answer honestly. But I am so good. I have never felt more energized about something. I've worked on a lot of different projects in a decade, and I never understood why anyone would do a book until I did it myself. And now I'm like, I'm all in, but it's balancing this life of loving motherhood and loving my work. And it just feels very full, not stretched, but full. And it's balancing both of those things. And so sometimes I get it right. Sometimes I get it wrong, but that's where we're at today.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. If I can share really quick, because I was just laughing, thinking of
Yes.
you in this book, and I know you just had your second baby about
Yes.
6 months ago
Yep.
now. So
Yep.
weird. I feel like I'm like tracking the pictures. And
I love it.
you're so cute. Well, I'm laughing because I'm laughing. My son has COVID and he's fine and
Yeah.
he's locked in his room. And I'm like, I got to make his lunch and like we're doing this.
Yes.
And I was like, you know what? This is the perfect energy. And my stepdaughter's coming home and I got her lunch out. I'm like, it's called being a mom. And
Yes.
for you,
Integration, baby.
integration. Yes. How can you like share a little bit? I know, I mean, you have the award-winning top-rated Gold Digger podcast. You've done so much.
Yeah.
And I love that you started, your mom from Minnesota. You started, I believe, in the photography world.
Yep.
Maybe just a quick, like for people that don't know you well, like a
Yeah.
little bit of your kind of how you got from there to this place now where you really are not just balancing being a mom, but really trying to help people, I think, get to the heart of who they are and to be that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So my entrepreneurship journey has been a decade. So whenever somebody
Mm.
says overnight success, I'm like, give me a decade and I'll show you what success can look like.
Yeah.
But more than what it can look like, what it can feel like. And I think that is something that sets me apart from other people who have done big things, because I don't really care about the big things. I love the little things.
Mm.
And so I was in corporate America, didn't know exactly what I wanted, but knew what I didn't want any longer, which was climbing the ladder and the 5-year plan and all of that. And so I bought a camera on Craigslist and it became my vehicle out of corporate America. And I became a wedding photographer. I taught myself everything, had never taken an art class, and went on to be the best wedding photographer in Wisconsin 4 years in a row. And when I decided that I finally wanted to become a mom 5 years into marriage with my husband, Drew, everything changed. And we went through a journey that took 3 years and had 2 losses. And I think I just learned a lot in that waiting season, and what I, again, didn't want, but also how can I start moving towards what I do want, what I do envision. And I knew I wanted to be a really active mom and I wanted to be a present mom. And the work that I was doing at the time was me trading time for money and didn't allow me to really even be able to dream of what that would look like. And so in that waiting season, I just worked really hard to figure out how could I stop trading time for money, but how can I also use and treat time as my currency? And that was a huge shifter for me. So what you see today is just really a reflection of me building a life that allows me to be the type of mom I want to be. And this book is really a lot about how to come back home to yourself and live a life that feels good and doesn't just look good.
Oh, girl, this is so good. Thank you for oh,
Yes.
thank you. And I think it's important because I know when people see it, it can be like, oh, how did she do that? And you have a huge, beautiful, amazing community following all of that
Yeah.
platform. Love that you said it took a decade. I think it's important everyone listening to really get that just this did not
Yeah.
happen overnight. And one thing I'm picking up for you, Jen, I've always felt this is, and you said this in the beginning, integrity and alignment. It feels like
Yeah.
your anchor points have been what's going to feed my soul, what's going to be in integrity and alignment, and how can I
Yes.
build from that way? And that's important to note because you can feel that in everything you do and what you're putting out there.
I feel like too, it's fascinating because I have pivoted so many times, Julie. Like I've been like, I'm going to do this. And then it's like, I've changed my mind. I want to do this and do this and do this.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I think a lot of people are in a place of pivoting or like figuring out like, this doesn't work any longer. How do I move in a direction that does? But I think I've been a successful pivoter because I have stayed in alignment with me and my life. And people care more about the people and not the output. And I think in a society that is so efficiency driven and so output driven, we forget that. We think our worth is in that. But I think that people can feel that authenticity and they gravitate towards it, because it's almost like when you see somebody alive and really in alignment, it's this invitation for you to come alive too, which I think is just such a big difference that we are all hungry for.
Mm. Oh yeah. Amen. Amen. I'm like, and I'm just, everyone listening, I always feel this because it's important. What you're saying is that alignment, that's been the driver. And so what has
Yes.
manifested and come, and I love also what you said is the successful pivoter. It's being able to pivot
Yes.
with what's true for you. And I'm curious. So just talking about the book, I really want to get into this. I love the title, and I love that I always look, I love you have such a great eye, and that really, how are you really like, that was clearly like, no, like what I got was no, sister, like seriously,
yes.
what the F's going on down there?
Cut
Like,
the fluff. Yes.
Yeah. Cut the fluff. Exactly. How did this idea come? Is it something you thought of for a while? I got to say, with two little kiddos, I'm amazed. I was like, girl, I don't know how she did that, but I love this title and what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, this is a line that I want your whole audience to like think about. Like when you go to bed tonight, I want for you to be thinking about this, but, for a very long time in my life, people have told me I should write a book. And every single time I was like, thanks, but no thanks. Sometimes kinder than others in my declining. And, so 2 years ago, 2020 hits, the world shifts, everything changes. We find our lives looking a lot different. And it was August of 2020, and it was my 10-year anniversary with my husband, and the world was slightly creeping open again. And I booked us massages, as any good wife would. I said, we haven't done anything in months. Let's do something. And so in our town of 1,200 people in the northernmost part of Minnesota, we went to this wonderful place called Loot Zen. And at Loot Zen was this woman named Thea. And I promise there's a very good point here. And before Thea did my massage, she said to me, hi, I'm an intuitive healer and I'll be doing your massage today. And I said, let's just rub down. I need my shoulders rubbed. Let's go. And after my massage, she said, can I tell you what came up for you today? And I said, sure. I'm very open-minded. Tell me anything. And she said, there's something you need to do and you know what it is, but you're not doing it. And I want everyone to think about that line. There is something you need to do and you know what it is. AKA the world's not going to tell you. It's not going to magically show up in your inbox or ping you as a text message. You know what it is and you need to do it. And the minute she said that, I knew it was a book. And it was crazy because I went home that day to trade off the Jeep so my husband could go get his massage because we were watching our toddler. And I had the lines on my face and he said, how was your massage? And I said, I have to write a book. And he's like, I am so confused at how a massage led you to this realization, but I support you. And it was something that I've been fighting for a long time. And it was just never the right timing, but there is no right timing. Did we not learn anything in the last few years? There is never a right time. And I was really deeply hopeful that we would keep expanding our family. And she said, you need to do this before you get pregnant. Like this is something that needs to pour out of you before you can create life. And it was just this deadline and this permission and all of the things that I needed to be a perfect storm for me to start writing, which is crazy. So isn't it wild when you think about how even me at this stage of the game, at this stage of success, I still sometimes need somebody to say, you know what you need to do now, go do it.
Yeah.
And I did.
Woo, I got chills as you're saying that, and here's the thing. And I think for anyone listening, whether it's a book, whatever it is, and what you're saying, Jenna, is you've held this within you. And I always think like, who the heck wants to get to the end and feel like I didn't allow all the divine creativity to come through. I didn't share my gifts. And I'm like, I got chills. I'm sweating. I don't know. I've got two things going on here. Maybe that's just hormones, but I'm definitely vibing with you. This feels so powerful. And you knew immediately when this intuitive healer was like, she didn't say you need to write a book. She said, you know what it is. And I knew. It's just crazy how we're walking through life with that. Yeah, I love that. We'll definitely going to highlight that because that sentence is huge. That's
Yeah.
really powerful. And I'm sure everybody who's tuning in, I'm sure knows that there is something. I know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And can you share a little bit? So the impetus of the book, the what, in terms of how are you really kind of what you felt called, I guess,
Yeah.
to write about, and even whatever you feel like sharing
Yeah.
about the book, because I just think this
Oh
title
yeah. Let's talk about it.
is awesome.
So the book didn't even get named until it was done, which is crazy. So like a lot of things, it's like the things you see first are the things that were decided last. We had a lot of different working titles throughout the process. And that same intuitive healer, one day after I told her I started writing the book, I continued to get rubbed down by her. And she was saying, your book is going to empower a lot of people. And then she goes, no, empower isn't the right word. Enrich is the
Mm.
word. And for a long time, the working title was enriched because I loved that. It was like, there is something already there and we're just going to make it richer, because I truly believe everyone is living this life where there is something already there. We just need to pay closer attention to it. But I was pregnant. I handed in my manuscript days before my second daughter was born. So I had to name a baby and a book at the same time. And I hate naming things. Like my first course was called the Jenna Kutcher course because I couldn't come up with a name. So I'm not good at naming things. But when I was describing it to people in my life and asking for help in naming it, I kept describing it as the difference in a conversation when you get past the how are you really, or how are you, like good, busy, stressed, like, the frantic response to like feeling safe when somebody leans in and
Mm.
you feel welcome to share how are you really. And I kept describing it that way. And finally, somebody who's much smarter than I am in my life said, well, isn't that the title? And I said, oh, I think you're right. And so what's fascinating to me is that I think, and I asked my editor this, I wrote the whole book and then I ended up getting the book deal after because I wanted to protect my creativity and my own timing in it.
Yeah.
And when I finally got my book deal, I asked my editor, why did you choose me? Why this book? And she said something that stuck with me. And she said, right now in the world for achievers, there are two worlds you could live in. It's the hustle culture, the more, wake up earlier, stay up later. And it's the manifestors, the people who want to speak their dreams into existence. And she said, you live in the middle. In a black and white world, you're living in the gray. It's where the woo meets the work. It's where the visions are backed up by the action. And man, did that really stick with me, because here's the thing. I think we already face enough polarizing decisions. As a mom, it's, do I baby led wean or do I do purees? Do I sleep train or do I nurture? All of these things. And you don't realize how polarizing everything is until you land in it. And I feel like the same goes for us as ambitious human beings who want to live into our purpose. And it's really the beauty of my life has come when I hold those visions, but when I am willing to take the tiny micro actions towards them. And so that is really the impetus of the book. It's getting honest with ourselves. Do I like my life, or am I faking to like it? And how do I really lean in and put action behind the life that I want to have?
That is awesome. I just keep coming back to, the woo and the work, that middle, it's so powerful. And I think there's been an asking, I always feel like it's the Rumi
Yes.
quote, whatever you're seeking is seeking you.
Yes.
So what
Yes.
you're talking about, this has been a calling. I think that there's so many of us, especially I'd imagine entrepreneurial moms that probably fit
Yeah.
in, and whether they're moms or entrepreneurs or just hustling or working hard. I think what you said though, the hustle versus the manifestor, but in that middle space and how to do
Yeah.
that, that's powerful.
Yeah. I love it.
Amazing. Wow. Well, so I always like to just, I know I could talk to you for hours. I gotta be honest. I'm like,
Same.
we're going to do this again at some point. I don't know when,
Yes.
I don't know how. I always ask, the last thing I ask, I call them heart flares, where your
Yeah.
heart is like, I did not share this, but my heart is like, hello, I want to speak. So I'm just going to say, Jenna, is there any heart flare, anything I didn't ask yet that you're like, your heart is like, we've got to go here?
I would say that there is this world that we've been living in that tells us there's only one way to do things. And I think a lot of us have arrived in places that we weren't meant to arrive in because we were following someone else's map, someone else's blueprint. And there's a line in the book that maybe it didn't work for you because it didn't come from you. And so what's been fascinating about this journey and something that I've held myself to at the highest level of integrity is that I will live my life like those pages of the book read. And that means figuring out new ways to do things, whether it's recording my audiobook in our local radio station so I can be home with my children, or whether it's doing my cover photo shoot in my backyard instead of a studio so that I'm there to nurse my babies. And so I want to encourage women that just as there's something you need to do that you know what it is, there is also ways that it can be done that allow you to live out what you say are your values. And so I just want to encourage that because we live in a society that tells us there's only one way to get there, but there are many ways to get to where you want to go because you're the keeper of your map. And so in order to be on the right path, we first have to know not just where we're going, but where we're starting from. And I hope that my book is the invitation for you to get honest about this starting point so that as you start to move forward, you're moving in a direction that's honest to where you want to go.
My gosh. All right. Drop the mic. I got nothing to say. That's just so good. I'm like, Sam, where were you 20 years ago? I mean, I lifelong learner here. I'm like, yeah,
I was just a little baby then.
Right. Or whatever. True to all of that. That is, yeah, I love what you said. And I'm going to just say all of this will be in the show notes. And of course, your book, when is she being birthed? When are you birthing your third baby?
June 28th. I know I'm like, she's kind of Quinn's twin because so much of the process happened around being pregnant and getting pregnant and all of those things. I literally edited the final manuscript with a 10-day-old sweet little baby. And it honestly was so wonderful. Like it was me doing both of the things. So June 28th is the big date and you can pick it up at howareyourreallybook.com or just search How Are You Really anywhere you get books. And I would love for it to be in your hands. It's not my life's work, but is the most important piece of work I've ever done in my life. And I really hope that it lands where you are.
Oh, beautiful. Jenna, we will have all the links and everything. Thank you, beautiful soul, for listening and doing that thing that was in you and taking me really, I so salute you. That is no joke to do a book. And I hope everyone's inspired to really listen. Like you said, there's something you need to do and you know it. So yes, do it. And that's what you did. We love you for it.
Thank you, Julie. It was such a joy to be with you today.
So fun. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. I never want to end these. That's what sucks is